Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cesar Berrios. I'm the Outreach Director for F1000 Research. I'd like to thank the conference organizers for inviting me to the meeting, and for you guys for being here this afternoon. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we're integrating ORCID into various F1000 research F1000 product, including F1000 Research. But before I do that, just a short personal story, right? So my full name, as I stated before, is Cesar Berrios Otero. However, as most people, I go by two names, my first name and the first of my last names. However, we enter these two names into PubMed. I get results for 19 papers, out of which only 6 are mine. Really, out of the 4 that you see on the screen, none of them are mine, and they're actually from 4 different type of researchers. So even though this is a mild case of author, misidentification or confusion, it's not the same case for my former colleague, Xin Yu from the NYU Medical Center. Even though he's a very productive scientist, I don't think he has 7,000 articles already published during his early short career. So, because of these reasons, I started to adopt the hyphenated last name to sort of, distinguish myself from other people that are C. Berrios or Berrios C. Or any combination of these. So this is essentially the same reason why at F1000 we've wanted to adopt ORCID. To properly connect authors and referees to their work. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing in terms of referees and peer review towards the end of the talk. Essentially, it's to assign proper credit where it's due. So, we initially adopted ORCID ID into the workflow of F1000 Prime, which is a directory of recommendations of the best research in biology and medicine, made by a faculty of global experts. Approximately 10,000 global experts contribute, select, rate, and comment on the most interesting and important research articles from over 3,700 research journals, and they assign ratings depending on the importance of these papers that they read. So, clearly, the work of our faculty members, is time-consuming. It's not something that's necessarily easy to do, and especially when these faculty members are submitting about a dozen of these recommendations every year. So we wanted to give them the appropriate recognition for their work. So we started by adding DOIs to each one of these recommendations, but we wanted to take it a step further, and thus we adopted ORCID at the beginning towards the end of 2012 when they initially started. So, as a user, basically, this is the first, introduction to ORCID ID in our system. When people sign in, they go to their details page. There's a little box that alerts them about ORCID ID, to get ORCID ID, and a link about more information about ORCID as well. They click on this link. Obviously, it takes them to their sign-up page where they can sign in or fill out the information to get their own individual ORCID ID. Once they do that, the system takes them back to our website, and where they can now essentially link or add any of their recommendations directly to their ORCID profile, as you can see in that tab that says, add to ORCID ID. So, the system essentially takes them to an authorization page, and finally to the ORCID profile, where you can see these recommendations as highlighted by these blue arrows. So, the second service where we decided to integrate ORCID ID, and we've done this more recently, is F1000 Research, which is our open science journal for life scientists that offers rapid publication within a week after submission into our journal by using post-publication peer review. Now, we do things very differently from traditional journals. In traditional journals, an author would submit their manuscript, which would then go into the hands of an editor or an editorial board a lot of the times, which make the decision on whether which then make the decision on whether or not the article proceeds into this closed referee process and author revision cycle, which can last months, sometimes years, depending on the publication. And finally, if they're lucky enough, it gets published. So what we did is we essentially decoupled publication from peer review and sort of flipped this around on its head by publishing articles first and then taking care of the peer review afterwards. So in our system, or in our model, an author submits an initial version of their article, which goes through an in-house peer refereeing check that checks primarily for the soundness of the science, without any judgment on whether or not it's going to be a high-impact publication or article. It also checks for plagiarism and adherence to ethical guidelines. So after it passes this check, it gets published online within 7 days or less. After it's published, then it goes into an open referee process in which it's completely transparent, completely open. The referees take a look at the article, make any recommendations, and give it one of 3 different ratings. An approved rating if it's sound science and only needs minor revisions, an approved reservation if it needs some major revisions, or not approved marking if it's just not sound science or it's so flawed that it needs to be completely reworked. So the author gets the recommendations from the referees and these marks, and submits a second version of the article if necessary until the article accrues either 2 approved check marks or 1 approved check mark, or 2 approved with reservation question marks. After which, then it's indexed on the major indexing databases: PubMed, Scopus, Embase, and Google Scholar. So, because of the complexity of our system, it was a little, I guess, more challenging to integrate ORCID. So there are various instances during this workflow in which authors are reminded about ORCID. The first one is during the article submission process, of course, in which they have this short paragraph next to the submission form that alerts them about ORCID ID and about setting up an ORCID account. The second instance is after the publication of the article itself, but before the peer review process begins. Here, every author gets an email telling them that not only the article has been published, but that they should create an ORCID profile and to upload or link this article to the ORCID ID profile. Now, so this is essentially what happens when they click on that link on their email and go through, it connects them to ORCID, and then the system takes them back to our website, where they are alerted about the success of linking this publication to the ORCID profile. This is actually one of our authors, Louise Kane, who has published not only a bunch of F1000 Prime recommendations, highlighting in the blue arrows, but also a couple of F1000 research articles you can see in the orange arrow on top. Now, there's also a third party in our workflow that's very important and a lot of times gets neglected, and those are the reviewers. So this is one way to, and I state this because articles as a researcher output are well recognized and credit is clearly given, but many other researcher roles are not well recognized. And one of the major time-consuming roles that is crucial for scientific progress is reviewers, or the work that reviewers do. But currently, it's very hard to provide the necessary credit. So we've recently partnered with ORCID and Cesar on a peer review service project to devise ways to give credit to peer reviewers in different areas. So one of the ways to circumvent this and give reviewers proper credit is to, of course, use an open peer review system where they're clearly identified and their affiliations are clearly stated. However, without an identifier such as DOI, it's very hard to make this very clear, or it's very hard to standardize it, I guess, for reviewers to actually be able to put this into their CVs or whatever. So So that's the first thing that we did is we added a DOI to each one of our referee reports so that now reviewers can get proper credit for their work, which is definitely not insignificant. However, the task that we're trying to tackle with our partnership with Cesar and ORCID is to develop a schema and a set of fields to describe peer review that is standardized and can be used by all for a variety of types of peer review. Now, the project is currently managed by Paul Ritchie from Cesar and is co-chaired by Laura Paglione. I hope I said that okay. From ORCID, and Rebecca Lawrence, the managing editor for F1000 Research. And we have a working group of various different organizations and universities that are helping us through this. So some of the challenges are that there are many types of peer review. For example, there's article peer review, which can be pre or post-publication. It can be open, single, or double-blinded. There's also grant peer review, with varying levels of openness. Also conference peer review, tenure peer review, as well as several categories of peer review, including formal evaluation, for example, F1000 prime recommendations, formal peer review, as well as more informal type of peer review, such as comments on PubMed Commons, PubPeer, and websites as like Hypothesis. Also, there are many review roles, for example, editors-in-chiefs, section editors, editorial board members, as well as evaluation panel members. And also, there's a significant amount of peer review that leads to rejection. So this can be quite difficult to capture. So thus far, we've agreed to to evaluate article peer review and all types of formal peer review, including other roles such as editor, as well as grant review, conference, topic, meeting abstract reviews, tenure reviews, but we're not really tackling annotations and commenting primarily, I guess, because of the technical difficulties of trying to pull all this together or come up with a sensible workflow. So the next steps are to draft recommendations, which are due to be submitted in June. Cesar will then translate these recommendations into fully defined record types, fields, and classifications for including into their dictionaries, so they can be openly used by the broader research community. And then ORCID will use these recommendations to develop methods for linking these activities to ORCID identifiers and posting review metadata into the ORCID registry. So any interested reviewers in the audience that might want to be part of the reviewer circle, they can get in contact with Cesar at info@casri.org. And so in terms of F1000 Prime and F1000 Research, I guess the biggest hurdle is adoption. Because thus far, we've only had approximately 345 faculty members out of more than 11,000 that have actually that have ORCID IDs, and only approximately 48 authors that have submitted articles to our journal. Once the Cesar project is ended, our plan is to also make a big announcement for reviewers so that they can know that they can now link their reviews to their ORCID profiles.